Hello everyone, Revan619 here. How the devil are you? In today's video, I am going to be covering the Castigator Officer. Now, there are two variants that you can do with this, both medium and heavy armor versions, and you can focus in on either Persuasion to use the Black Ring of the Inquisition, or you can go into Law Imperium to use items like Charter's Pendant, St. Cognatius' Scriptures, and Breacher's Armor, which will allow you to stack armor through the roof. Now, at the moment, I've done a mix of both, and I am not using the Black Ring of the Inquisition. This is a very powerful item, if not the strongest item in the game, which can trivialize any combat encounter by giving you insane buffs and sending your stats through the roof and giving you an instant heroic action. I'm going to be doing this video a little bit differently because Castigator Officer and Officer Grand Strategist in particular enables your characters to just win the game. When someone says that Rogue Trader is an easy game or too easy a game, what they are actually saying is they heavily rely on Grand Strategist to skip turn order and either Officer, Navigator or Psyker buffers, if not all three, to trivialize the game. Now, that's not me saying that that's not a okay strategy. In fact, that is the most optimal way to play Unfair, and the way that I suggest and the way that I play myself. It's in fact such a good playstyle. It can hide up incredibly poorly built or unoptimized builds to the point where you just make the game too easy. With that in mind, let's show off what we can do here. So first, we're going to start off with In the Name of the Lex Imperialis, and then I'm going to start talking about the route. The reason for this is it stops our allies from being prone, stunned, immobilized, and cannot attack, as well as enemies must pass real power resistance turn or become immobilized. This will actually trigger our shotgun, so we might actually have an accident of killing our own allies here. Luckily, we did not. So, one of the things that you have to do with Grand Strategist is understanding how the zones work. Now, frontline can be used for both offense or defense, so we're actually going to set that up here, so we are ready to go. The next thing we are going to do is we are actually going to set Blitz Stratagem so we can start moving around. However, we do have the little bit of awkwardness that even though when we play it twice, because of Combat Locus Stratagem, it is going to disappear. But if we want to be able to play it twice, we do need to use it first. So that is a bit of a sticky situation. But I am going to place it here so we get another use of it. I am going to use Combat Locus. So now we can actually set up another rear zone. And we're also going to be able to set up another Blitz Stratagem to be able to move. Now, it is a shame that we weren't able to set up two to get to it, but it is what it is. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do next, after checking out how nice your stats now look because of these little buffs that have come in here, so our armor has been increased quite a nice amount, is we are going to pick which ally we're going to use to clear this encounter. Now, for me, I want to pick my main character here, which is Walker. Obviously, I've had to make a mercenary to show this off, so I am going to throw on Voice of Command, going to add some Air of Authority. I am going to put down Overwhelming Stratagem because this will allow us to proc some checks here. And then up ahead a little bit, we're going to put down a Killzone Stratagem as well as a Trench Line Stratagem in this area because there is some chances that allies may accidentally kill each other. Now, the next thing we're going to want to do is I'm going to actually move Idara away. So if any of my allies get procced for an attack for opportunity here, that even though, well, my Castigator might be able to blast Pascal here, but by moving Idara, that means Walker isn't going to blast her. So the next thing we're going to do is, we don't actually have enough momentum to set up our infinite turns order here, but if I bring it down over to Idara, she can start to get us set up. So we have to, using Idara, pray that we don't accidentally explode ourselves with perils of the warp. So the first thing I'm going to do is activate Sensory Deprivation, which, as you can see, caused one hell of amount of chaos that I was not expecting. My goodness. So it seems that the shotgun of my Arbitrator did accidentally go in that direction that I was hoping it wouldn't, and I've exploded Idara and killed the boss as well. Yeah, that's not how I expected that to go. That has sort of changed what I was going to show off and explain here. Wow. Wow is all I can really say here. Yeah, that's not what the intention is. The intention was to use the Psycho buffs. I've actually moved it to the wrong side. I assumed that he would fire down towards the boss here, not across here. So unfortunately, that is some of the backfire of the Lex stuff. So it actually one-shot Abelard. The Raven died, as well as Idra. However, that's not too much of a problem. That we can still work with that. So he's actually going to go himself, and he did get his Firearm Mastery Heroic Act. So I am actually going to set up his Running Gun, Revel in Slaughter, and obviously set that up. For him as well, I also want to set up Advanced Tracking. So the first thing I'm going to have him do is, now by moving up, it's also caused Law and Order to proc on my officer, which is quite useful here. By moving the dog's now going to follow us and protect, so we'll be able to build up some movement and damage for him. So with our actual movement, we've got quite a lot of movement saved up here. We'll be able to generate a number of attacks as well, so this will be something that is going to be quite interesting. So first of all, we will blast here, reload the shotgun. We will then move back across over to here, which will bring the dog. Dog is now going to set up for our Vigilance ability. Very nice. And we are going to get blasting. So as he fires, obviously it will do some damage and the dog will follow up and attack. Now, the buffs aren't as high as I would have liked them, because the plan was not just to use the officer's buff, which you can see with focus and voice of command here. The plan was to also set up the psych buff and talk about that loop. However, that whole plan has gone a bit Pete Tong. Alright, so the dog is going to continue giving us some nice little follow-ups here. We are going to reposition so we can get the most out of this. Alright, we don't want to blast the dog here. Seems we don't really have a choice.
Not a problem for me. Never wavered in the face of adversity.
I might send the dog over with a bite to finish this one off so we don't have to hit them both. So yep, dog's done the job of hitting him. We can then blast that fella. Then we will move around over to here, and we will bring the dog over for another apprehend. Now, because we actually don't have... things went a little bit wrong, so we've actually run out of attack economy here. But what we can do is we can use a shield bash, which will cause the dog to take another bite. And then we can follow up with another apprehend. Now things will come back around. The enemy got his turn skip. It's actually Pascal's turn, so as long as we can get him into good positioning for Pascal. Whom currently is not actually buffed up himself. But the dog was able to follow up and one turn there. So we're actually going to talk a little bit about what we're actually seeing on some of these levelings. Now, the end game is always going to be the same, where you're able to just buff and win before enemies even have a chance to do anything. Like I said, it would have been more impressive as per my other videos, but things went a little bit wrong. And rather than edit that out, we're going to keep that. So the two ways that you can build this is you're going to want to go into coercion no matter what build you go for, but you're going to be able to select between persuasion if you want to go for the Inquisitor's ring, or if you want to put that on an ally, you put that on them, or Law Imperium if you want to stack Imperium, and then we'll talk about some of the other little options we have here. Now, for this version, normally with my officers, I like to go into move, but I'm actually taking Air of Authority first because we're not taking move that early on yet. We will get Lasting Impression, so we get extra half bonuses from our officer abilities, which is going to be very good for the early game. Decisive Response, well, for the first round of combat, will save some AP, but it'll be less useful later on, so if you did want to switch that, you could do that here. Steel Resolve will increase our resolve, which will actually buff Air of Authority. Lawful Intervention is going to be very useful, so we get our parry from our ballistic skill, so this is very important to take on early on, and it will also allow us to use the shotgun for attacks of opportunity. Grenadier, as an officer, it will be absolutely buffing your ability to be supportive. supporting your cast. If you're going to be making the Forge World version, so on the Forge World version, you're going to focus on toughness. On the Imperial World version, we're going to be focused on perception. So here we'll take toughness for Forge World. Willpower is what we're going to take for Lore Imperial. For some of our other abilities, we take Inspiring Speech. So this will buff Air Authority's momentum game here. We get some Fellowship. We take In the Name of the Lex Imperialis, which will stop us getting moved about. And then we take Characteristic Training Perception, which we'll take for both builds because you'll actually need Perception to hit. Alternatively, if you are using shields early on, you could take Arbiter's Physical Training here, but I like to take that a little bit later. But if you want to take that earlier so you can get Shotgun Mastery earlier, then this is the place to do it. Depending on if you're going to have a very melee or ranged party, this is where you take Focus or be Vigilant at level 13. Arm Piercing is going to be very useful to get up because it will just mass slow enemy armor in an area for the rest of your party to do it. When it comes to the finest upgrade, 4 is the most important to get first because it will reduce AP cost for your allies, and 1 second because it will increase the damage that they do. Moving into Grand Strategist, this is very useful because it allows you to go first. If you are planning to build up a tough base, then you'll be starting up front with enemies and then getting your buffs up, and you'll want to move allies up with you because until around level 24, when you start DLC 1, to be able to start turning Lore Imperium into armor, you can be a little bit squishy. Combat Locus Stratagem is going to be very good for keeping you alive until you have that. Improvised Strategy is going to be one of the best talents for giving you an extra stratagem from the Grand Strategist tree. We take Fellowship early. The reason I'm taking Fellowship first is because it gets us to a complete number for that extra +1. This is before we have like colony buffs coming in. Strategic Offense is what we get 21 with more Bliss skill coming in, and then we get Blitz Stratagem. Blitz Stratagem is going to be very useful being able to help move your allies around during their turns. They can also take abilities if you want to be able to move the zones themselves, so this is going to be something that you're going to want to be looking at for personal combat zone. Opening Strategy, now that you have 2, you can refund the first one. I use it mostly for Blitz Stratagem, so I can set it up into 2 zones to move either allies up front into the Combat Locus and then somewhere else to the secondary, depending on where they need to go. Law and Order will allow you to mobilize and cause some willpower checks. It will also increase your damage when you attack for counterattacks from the shield-based ability. Now, it's going to be very good to be setting up the shield-based ability to be able to attack because you'll be able to immobilize enemies that, well, basically you block. Blood Locust is going to be bringing in some more bonuses here, so we're going to be getting in for that at level 25. Level 26, more Coercion and Fellowship coming in. The Take and Hold versions you're probably not going to use, but 4 and 3 are the 2 upgrades that I take, but chances are you're always going to be using Finest Hour because it's just vastly superior. Personal Combat Zone is also going to be helping with some allies here, along with That's an Order coming in at level 30, which seems to be bugged and not stacking with In the Name of the Lex Imperialis. Level 31, Fire at Will be coming into the team, as well as Public Sentencing, another fine little strategy that we've got coming in here. At level 32, we've got some Persuasion Law Imperium, we got some Toughness and Perception, we got some Perception Willpower, Justing Frontline, and Arbiter's Physical Training or Ready to Serve. Now, you might be wondering what a lot of that's doing, so we're going to actually talk about the Arbiter's strategy here, and we're going to read some of these abilities. So, if you were wondering why we're taking some of these upgrades and what that means, let's actually have a look at it. As I said with Lawful Intervention, this is going to be the one that we take on early. This is going to be so the Arbitrator can parry incoming attacks with a ranged weapon. To calculate parry chance, the Arbitrator uses ballistic skill instead of weapon skill. The Arbitrator can make attacks of opportunity with a ranged weapon that they can use melee range, aka shotguns. We'll use faux hammers early on, which is the pistol, and then once we have shotgun mastery, we'll upgrade to full-on shotguns. Now, this in itself is quite useful. The next one that I said that we take here is Law and Order. So the Arbitrator attacks made in others' turns, deal 15% more damage. The target of such an attack must pass a willpower resistant test or become immobilized for 1 round. So this is very useful for, first of all, causing willpower tests, which will come into effect with another thing, and it also increase our damage when we're using it on other turns. But what we're mostly looking at here is the willpower check. So say you've used move to move an ally up next to you, chances are you're going to want to move, say, Solomon, for instance, next to you, or in my case, as I was using another Vigilant, but say Solomon, that we move him up next to us. Why we're going to want to do that is going to be because of Law and Order and Lawful Intervention, as well as Public Sentencing. So we'll go over that as well. So what this will do is we'll set our officer up, we'll use our shield stance, so when we block an attack, we'll be able to take a revenge shot. Now, because we trigger that willpower check, that will then actually work with public sentencing, which is whenever an enemy adjacent to the arbitrator faces a willpower resistant test for the first time in a round, that enemy provokes an attack of opportunity from the arbitrator. If multiple enemies fail this test at the same time, the attack of opportunity is triggered against one of them randomly. So if you've moved up Solomon next to you, they attack, you block, you fire a shotgun shot, he will then also fire a shotgun shot. As you can saw when that boss got absolutely annihilated by both my arbitrator and my castigator both taking shots from the vigilant arbitrator and castigator. That unfortunately went a bit wrong. The positioning was bad. I wiped out my own team. However, very, very, very useful here. So the Arbiter has physical training. When you use that, if you're using shields, it'll increase your toughness. So if you're going for the tanky version, you'll want to be focusing on that. But because I'm not, instead of taking that, what I'm taking is Ready to Serve, because it increases allies resolve by +5 when we use buffs on them. So that's actually very useful. So as you can see here, you're either going to create someone who's going to be very buff focused, or you're going to be creating someone that's going to be very tanky to be taking enemy hits, to then be setting up allies to hit them. And the fact that we trigger willpower tests, means that we'll be able to take extra attacks here, and it also means that when allies provoke willpower tests, we'll be able to take shotgun shots that will immobilize them, so we'll be creating small CC. So Idra can be useful for do this, because if you have enemies around your Castigator, you bring it down to Idra, she then uses the Raven to do AoE willpower tests, your Castigator will fire a shot which will immobilize it and keep the rest of your team safe. So with all that in mind, and that nice little combination that we've now built up, let's go back and look at what we're going to be taking into the Exemplar levels. Moving into Exemplar, we take Firebrand, so our Bring It Downs have more AP that we give to an ally. We take up the second half of Focus or Be Vigilant. This is what buffs the ballistic skill or the weapon skill of allies when they get buffs here. And then we're going to start picking up some other useful things. So Strong Point will refund some AP when we use stratagems. Fellowship, again, we want that because it buffs our officer abilities. Mob Justice is going to increase ally damage that are within 3 cells you. Move, like I said, it will allow you to move allies and set up all sorts of little strategies. And it's very good for getting them out of the way of danger. Peak Condition is what we're going to pick up to get the strength for heavy armor if we're going subskin armor route. If not, Eager for Battle to get the AP earlier. Seize the Initiative will boost your allies' damage before enemies have had a turn to act, as well as Overwhelming Stratagem. It's another good stratagem here, and that can actually provoke willpower checks. So again, very useful to have. Daunting Zone will be the upgrade for that, but yes, heavy arm efficiency if you're going to go that route, or pacification procedure so you can use 2 non-damaging grenades for free if you're going more of the buff support route. Eager for Battle, like I said, would have got you some more AP, but Eager Subordinates will also increase your allies' damage during extra turns. Leader's Assault is going to be a way that we can sort of increase our fellowship by attacking, and you will actually get quite a lot of extra attacks, and you'll be setting up for more extra attacks for when enemies attack you and block you. So that's going to be very useful for building up fellowship. Personal Oversight will obviously help give some more buffs into allies, as well as Stoking Zone for more zone buffs based on that. Now, if you're going the tanky route, you're going to pick up toughness. If you're not and you're going the buff route, you're actually going to pick up intelligence, because some of your zones actually take bonuses from intelligence. It's not very much, so I don't suggest to buff into it, to build into it too high, but it is going to be a benefit, and you are mostly going to be using a Psyker buffer to really get that up. Like I said, you don't have to do everything because buffing is so strong. If you've gone the tanky route, you'll get Eager Subordinates next, and if not, Attention. Then the last few things is just sort of finishing the build. Binding for a Purpose probably won't see much use, so Shotgun Mastery is a good option. I think you should really take Shotgun Mastery there, because chances are you're going to be one-turning everything anyway. So yeah, that's going to be the main priority here. Blood of Martyrs is going to be useful for just getting some extra temp HP on allies, especially if you're using Malpain Shroud. This will just help get some extra damage in or extra survivability. Pillar of the Law, when you've done Final Style, will boost your stats, so if you are tanking, you will be quite damn strong. But if you're using Blackwing of the Inquisition, it's just more winning. It's not a priority, it's just more winning. And then you have the option to choose between Take Aim or Killzone Stratagem to help your allies. And lastly, you're going to take Degraded Defense just to sort of get your damage dealer's damage up by starting setting that up early. That will sort of close what we're doing with the build. When it comes to items, we do have a few options here. Because this is a mercenary, I've not been able to use Charter's Pendant because I've not been able to get my dogmatic rank up high enough to turn Law Imperium into Fellowship. But you can use Ancient Terror Monocle to see what that would do. So as you can see here, my Law Imperium is currently 135. If I put on the Ancient Terror Monocle as soon as I can see it here, there we go. as you can see, my Law Imperium goes up to 198, which means St. Cognatius Scriptures has given us an extra 19% armor. Because my coercion is so high, I have gone for the Warrior's armor because it's given 22 and it's got that base armor of 60. However, you don't get that till late Act 4, so for the majority of the game, you will probably be using the Breacher's armor, which will actually give you some very, very nice buffs based on your Law Imperium, so that's why we actually build into it. So yes, as you can see here, it's giving you some good buffs here. So you get an extra 19% armor there, then you get an extra 19% there, but because late game, once we do have the Warrior's armor, you will upgrade into that, and more importantly, it just gives you a better look overall, because yeah, just the Arbitrator look is very, very potent. Now, I am using Medal of Alacrity. Chances are, if you had Jay or Cassie, you could always use that on them. And then what you'd use is the Charter's Pendant, like I said, in this slot, which give you another 5 fellowship, and it would also enable you to be having the Law Imperium based on your Dogmatic. As for gloves, I put knuckle dusters for coercion because there's not many officer ones that are very good. I've got Enforcer's light boots, so whenever the wearer parries an attack, they immediately strike back at the attacker, so this will actually work with your shotgun as well. You want to be making counter attacks. Early on, you're going to be using Stalwart Defense to be doing that. I've picked up the Commander's Notes because, yeah, Combat Locust getting those ×4 is incredibly strong. I've got Road Trader's Cloak, so you get +5 fellowship for each enemy and 2 selves, so that's another way to boost that, which is quite nice. And like I said, you'll be using faux hammers early on, and when you do get Shotgun Mastery, you will be upgrading to shotguns. This is a very potent build. It can, like I said, if you build it to be tanky, it can be very tanky. If not, you build Perception to be guaranteeing that enemies aren't dodging, so you can start lowering their stats and guaranteeing those shots land. But these are some of the options that you have for items. There are many other things you could take. Like I said, if you do build into coercion, you are going to be wanting to use one of the Inquisitor's ring, like the Black Ring of the Inquisition, because Inquisitor's Tenant is the strongest ability in the game. Like, the amount of buffs that you get from this just guarantees some win. Normally, you'll just set up a Finest Hour and you'll one turn every encounter from Act 2 onwards before enemies can even react. It's especially potent with Blade Dancers, Warriors. Not so much Soldiers, but it's still quite usable, and it depends on your composition. But this is going to be a very strong build. Like I said, the beginning and the end game are going to play both the same between the Subskin Armor and the Imperial World versions, but the mid game is going to be very different because mid game tanking is still a viable option, but by late game you get so much momentum that you don't ever really need to take an attack. But we'll have to see what the balance changes bring in 1.5 and how we'll be renewing some of those builds. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the information. Any questions, do let me know below and I will answer them. And if you want to reach out to me personally for anything, do join the Discord that is in the description below, and I tend to message back as soon as people message me. That's all for now. Thanks for stopping by, Revan out, and let me know what your thoughts are and what you're hoping to see change with 1.5.